I remember the night clearly. The kind of night that settles into your bones, making everything feel heavier than it should. I was driving down a quiet road outside Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the headlights cutting through the darkness, the trees closing in on both sides. Then I saw it. Two glowing red eyes, like coals burning in the black. They hovered in the distance, unmoving, and yet I felt them, piercing me, watching my every move. I froze. My hands gripped the wheel tighter. My stomach turned. And then I saw the wings. Immense, impossibly wide, stretching up towards the night sky, blocking the stars. The shape of it was wrong. Wrong in a way that made my mind scramble for explanations. Nothing in nature should look like that, move like that, or feel like it was studying me. I didn't move. I couldn't. Every instinct screamed to run, but my body was rooted in fear, in disbelief, in awe. The eyes followed me as I slowly backed away, heart hammering, every shadow around me seeming alive. And then it was gone. Just like that. Silent. Vanished. I thought I was alone in my fear. I thought I had imagined it. Until the bridge collapsed. Point Pleasant is small. So small that everyone knows everyone else's business. Streets are quiet, lined with modest homes, churches, and the occasional shop. It's the kind of town where doors are left unlocked, and neighbors look out for one another. But its size and isolation make it the perfect backdrop for a legend like the Mothman. Nestled along the Ohio River, surrounded by dense forests and rolling hills, the town feels removed from the rest of the world. At night, the silence is almost absolute, broken only by the wind rustling through the trees or the distant calls of nocturnal animals. This isolation intensifies the fear when the sightings began in the mid-1960s. People didn't just see something strange, they felt it. The town became hyper-aware, every shadow, every movement amplified. It wasn't just the creature itself that unnerved them. It was the way it intruded on their sense of safety, on their everyday lives. Point Pleasant's tight-knit community meant that stories spread quickly. One sighting became two, then a dozen. Witnesses corroborated each other's experiences. And because everyone knew each other, the fear felt personal. It wasn't an anonymous tale from somewhere else. It was happening here, to them, in their town. Understanding Point Pleasant, the town, the people, the environment, is essential to understanding Mothman. It's not just a legend floating in the night. It's a creature, or a warning, tied immediately to a place that is as real and tangible as the fear it inspired. This is where the story begins. The town, the community, the darkness of the surrounding forests. They set the stage for something that would leave a mark on history and on anyone who dared to look too closely. It all began in November 1966, when a small town became the epicenter of something unexplainable. The first widely reported encounters involved couples driving at night along quiet roads outside Point Pleasant. One couple described seeing a large creature emerge from the trees, standing nearly 7 feet tall, with wings that seemed to stretch wider than any human could imagine. Its eyes were glowing red, fixed on them, burning in the dark like twin embers. Another witness tried to escape, accelerating down the road, but the figure seemed to keep pace effortlessly, gliding or moving in a way that defied logic. Witnesses consistently described no visible head, as if the glowing eyes were all that existed. Its speed, its size, and its silence left people terrorized and questioning their own senses. These weren't just fleeting shadows or half-seen animals. People called the police, and for a small town like Point Pleasant, these reports were taken seriously. Officers noted the consistency in descriptions, multiple independent accounts describing the same strange, terrifying figure. Soon, the sightings multiplied. Individuals and couples reported encounters in their yards, near abandoned factories, and along the winding roads. Despite the fear, the report shared uncanny similarities. The red eyes, the immense wings, the inexplicable speed. The town realized something unusual was happening. People weren't just frightened, they were being observed. Every night, the woods seemed alive, waiting, and the creature's appearance coincided with the growing sense of dread. There was no ordinary story. Something had arrived in Point Pleasant, something beyond explanation, and it had the town in its grip. And over the coming months, as sightings continued, the legend of the Mothman was born. As weeks passed, the Mothman sightings didn't stop. They intensified. What began with isolated reports soon became a pattern, and the town of Point Pleasant was on edge. People saw it not just once, but repeatedly, sometimes in the same locations, sometimes moving silently through neighborhoods. Its appearances were unpredictable, yet hauntingly consistent. Glowing red eyes, immense wings, and a presence that made the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. The TNT area, an abandoned munitions site outside town, became a hot spot for encounters. Witnesses reported the creature lurking there, its wings stretching against the darkened sky, moving with a grace and speed no ordinary animal could match. The area itself was already eerie. Old bunkers, silent buildings, and a feeling of decay. But with Mothman present, it became something more. Something alive in a way the town never felt before. Animals seemed to sense it too. Dogs refused to go outside. Cats would disappear for hours. Birds would scatter as if an unseen predator had arrived. Even those who didn't directly see it could feel its influence. It was as if the town itself was holding its breath. Phones, too, began to act strangely. Lines went dead, calls were dropped, and in a time before cell phones, that meant isolation. No immediate way to reach out to someone if something went wrong. The Mothman's presence seemed to stretch beyond the physical, creeping into the daily life of Point Pleasant in ways no one could explain. A growing dread settled over the town, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. People avoided the roads at night. Couples stopped driving late. Children were kept inside. And the stories, each one more terrifying than the last, circulated quickly in the tight-knit community, each one confirming the fear that something inhuman was watching. By this point, the Mothman wasn't just a creature in the woods. It was a presence, a looming shadow over the town, a warning, or maybe a harbinger. No one could say for certain. And that dread would only deepen in the months to come, as the town unknowingly edged closer to one of the most tragic events in its history. Circling back to outside of Point Pleasant lies that TNT area, an abandoned munitions site from World War II. Once a bustling place where explosives were manufactured, it was left empty after the war, its buildings crumbling, its bunkers dark and silent. For most people, it was just a relic of the past, a place of rusting machinery and decaying concrete. But for the town and the Mothman legend, it became something far more sinister. Witnesses frequently reported sightings in and around this area. The old buildings cast long shadows. The ground was scarred from years of use, and the air carried a strange stillness, as if the place itself was holding its breath. Some speculated that chemical contamination, remnants of explosives or other substances, may have affected the land, the animals, even the people who came near. Could it have altered the environment in ways that created unusual phenomena? Others said it didn't matter. The TNT area was simply perfect for something not meant to be seen. Isolated, forgotten, and dangerous. It had all the qualities a creature or an entity would need to remain hidden to watch the town without being noticed until it chose the moment to reveal itself. The reports that came in from this area were consistently unsettling. Shadows moving where no one should have been, glowing eyes appearing between broken windows, creatures flying silently over the river. Even experienced locals, people who had grown up around Point Pleasant, admitted to feeling an almost tangible sense of wrongness there. And perhaps that is what drew the Mothman there. Not just the isolation, not just the secrecy, but the sense that the place itself was a threshold. Somewhere the ordinary and the extraordinary collided. Something ancient, or something unknown, seems to inhabit the TNT area, testing the edges of the town's reality. By the time the Silver Bridge collapse occurred, this site had become a central location in the legend, a haunting anchor for the stories of the creature. And for anyone walking through the ruins today, it's easy to feel why. This place was never meant to be fully understood, or perhaps even fully seen. December 15th, 1967. A date that would forever mark Point Pleasant. On that day, the Silver Bridge, connecting Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, suddenly and violently collapsed. 46 people lost their lives. Cars plunged into the icy Ohio River, and the town awoke to shock, grief, and disbelief. The tragedy was swift and unrelenting. For a brief moment, the bridge was ordinary. Then it was gone, leaving only wreckage, water, and unanswered questions. Families were left searching for loved ones. Emergency crews worked tirelessly, and the small town found itself in mourning on a scale that no one had anticipated. It was also the moment when the Mothman sightings stopped. For more than a year, the creature had been appearing, terrifying, observing, and eluding capture. But after the bridge collapsed, it vanished, never to be reported in Point Pleasant again. Some have speculated that Mothman was a warning, an entity appearing before disaster. Others think it was a harbinger, drawn to tragedy. There are no easy answers. There are only accounts, memories, and the silence that followed. The bridge collapse left a mark, not just on the town, but on the legend itself. It gave the story weight, tragedy, and a sense of inevitability that no one could deny. This section of the story deserves pause. The Mothman wasn't just a curiosity anymore. For the people of Point Pleasant, it became intertwined with loss, with fear, and with the knowledge that some forces, or some mysteries, exist beyond human understanding. When we remember Mothman, we must remember the lives lost. The creature, the sightings, the warnings. They were all part of a larger tapestry. One that doesn't offer closure, only reflection. Because sometimes, the most haunting stories are the ones we can't explain, and the ones that leave a permanent shadow in our memories. After the collapse of the Silver Bridge, people began to ask the question that has haunted Mothman legends ever since. What if it wasn't here to hunt anyone? Many theorists believe Mothman appears before disasters, as if it's a warning, a signal, or a messenger. The Point Pleasant sightings seem to support this idea. For over a year, the creature was seen repeatedly, always elusive, always observing, culminating in the tragedy of December 15th, 1967. Then, almost immediately, it disappeared. But it doesn't stop with Point Pleasant. Across the United States, reports of winged figures, red eyes, and eerie presences have surfaced before other accidents and disasters. Some claim that strange creatures were spotted near industrial accidents, plane crashes, or natural disasters. It's enough to make you wonder, is Mothman a harbinger, appearing to alert us? Or is it something else entirely? A creature drawn to tragedy, following chaos rather than predicting it. And here's where it gets unsettling. What if it wasn't causing anything? What if it simply observed, moved with the currents of events we don't understand, and left only stories and fear in its wake? The line between omen and coincidence blurs. For some, that uncertainty is the most unnerving part. Mothman doesn't need to be explained, tamed, or captured. Its appearances and their timing force us to confront the fragility of life, the unpredictability of the world, and the mysteries that linger just beyond our comprehension. Perhaps that's why the legend endures. Not because Mothman is real, or even because it's dangerous, but because it embodies something primal. The fear of the unknown, the tension before catastrophe, and the haunting possibility that we're never truly alone in the dark. The Mothman sightings didn't exist in isolation. Around the same time, people reported encounters with something, or someone, completely different. They called him Indrid Cold, a man who appeared in the darkness, standing along the roads or watching from the woods. Witnesses described him as tall, unnaturally still, and grinning, a smile that didn't feel human, friendly, or comforting. When approached, he would speak, but the conversations were strange, cryptic, and often unsettling. He wasn't alone. Reports of the men in black began surfacing as well. Figures dressed in black suits, often arriving shortly after sightings of Mothman, asking probing questions, and sometimes intimidating witnesses into silence. Their presence added an entirely new layer of fear and mystery to the story. Some believe these figures were government agents trying to cover up what was happening in Point Pleasant. Others thought there was something else entirely: creatures, entities, or beings from another world, connected in ways that defy explanation. And the most chilling question remains: did something else arrive with Mothman? Were these strange humans, or inhuman, an accompaniment, observers, or even a warning of their own? The account suggests intelligence, deliberation, and a purpose that humans can barely grasp. The strange behavior, the cryptic words, the silent yet menacing presence, all of it paints a picture of a world slightly out of alignment with our own. Something that exists on the edges, visible only to those who are paying attention, and only at the moments when the ordinary slips into the extraordinary. For Point Pleasant, and for anyone who studies these stories, Indrid Cold and the Men in Black are not just side notes. They are part of the Mothman phenomenon, expanding it into something far stranger and far more unsettling than just a creature with glowing red eyes. Of course, no story like Mothman's would go without skeptical explanations. Over the years, researchers and skeptics have tried to rationalize what people saw in Point Pleasant, and a few ideas are worth noting. One common theory points to sandhill cranes. These large birds, with wingspans of up to 7 feet, can appear quite eerie at night. In low light, with their eyes reflecting headlights or other light sources, they might look like glowing red eyes. From a distance, their movements could be interpreted as something far larger than reality. Another explanation involves mass hysteria. In a small, tight-knit community, once one person reports seeing something strange, others may misinterpret shadows, trees, or animals as the same creature. Stories spread quickly, and fear amplifies perception. People start seeing what they expect, or dread, to see. These explanations are compelling on paper. They can account for some sightings, or even many of them, and yet they don't explain everything. Witnesses describe incredible speed, enormous wings, and consistent behavior over months. Police reports, multiple independent accounts, and the eerie timing of the events don't fit neatly into these rationalizations. There's also the emotional impact to consider. People weren't just startled or confused, they were terrified. They felt observed. Their dogs wouldn't go outside. Phones malfunctioned. The intensity of these experiences goes beyond misidentification or mass imagination. Skeptical theories help us understand part of the phenomenon. They ground the story in reality. But they don't erase the fear, the mystery, or the profound impression left on those who witnessed it. For many, the question isn't whether Mothman was real, it's why the experience felt so undeniably real and why it lingers in memory long after the sightings ended. After decades of sightings, reports, and speculation, the question still remains: what is Mothman? Some believe it is simply a creature, a bird, a misidentified animal, a giant unknown species. That's the most straightforward explanation. And for some, it's enough. But for many, it doesn't fully capture the phenomenon. Others see Mothman as a harbinger, a warning before disaster, a presence that arrives when tragedy is imminent. The timing of the Silver Bridge collapse makes this theory compelling. But then, what about the other sightings that didn't coincide with disasters? Or the strange entities that appeared alongside it, like Indrid Cold or the Men in Black? Some suggest an even stranger possibility: that Mothman is an interdimensional observer, something not entirely of our world, glimpsed only at the edges of perception, moving between realms and only partially manifesting in your own. The glowing red eyes, the impossible speed, the sudden appearances and disappearances all hint at something beyond ordinary understanding. And finally, there's a symbolic angle. Perhaps Mothman is a reflection of impending doom, an embodiment of fear, of uncertainty, of the fragile line between life and catastrophe. The creature becomes more than a monster. It is a presence, a question, a shadow that forces people to confront what they cannot control. Whatever Mothman truly is, one thing remains clear: it captivates the imagination. It reminds us that some mysteries are bigger than explanation, bigger than belief, bigger than the small town that first encountered it. And in the darkness, those glowing red eyes continue to haunt our collective memory long after the sightings have ended. Mothman feels different from other cryptids. Most creatures are hidden, elusive, and mysterious. But Mothman carries a weight beyond mere presence. It's not just the sightings. It's the timing. It's the way it appeared in Point Pleasant for a year, always observed, always fleeting, and then vanished just as tragedy struck. This isn't just a story about a winged figure with glowing red eyes. It's a story about fear, anticipation, and warning. A reminder that sometimes the unknown doesn't hunt us, doesn't harm us, but alerts us to what might come. Whether it was real, symbolic, or something entirely beyond comprehension, the legend of Mothman endures because its power to make us pause, to make us notice the fragile thread between ordinary life and disaster. If you've seen something you couldn't explain, felt watched in the dark, or experienced a strange warning before an event, I'd love to hear your story. You can submit your stories to hexes, haunts, and howls at gmail.com. Again, that's hexes, haunts, and howls, all one word, at gmail.com. All submissions will remain anonymous, and you may hear them in a future episode. Thank you for listening to Hexes, Haunts, and Howls. I'm your host, Cupcake. Until next time, stay sweet.